You know, DeMichael, I thought I was turning over a new leaf. I thought I was going to go into this season and be happy-go-lucky. Nobody wants to hear me yell for 30 or so minutes. Nobody wants that vibe, especially on a happy-go-lucky Thursday. But no, it's not going to be happy-go-lucky, DeMichael, because ESPN and injury reports and all of these other things, they just want to frustrate me and make me upset. You're going to have to talk me and calm me down,
They want
DeMichael.
the old Joe, man.
Oh gosh, they want the old Joe back. Well, they're going to get him on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I really was trying to be calmer. I really was trying to woosah. I was trying to do all those things. I hadn't yelled in a long time. We'll see if I'm still able. Maybe I can channel it better, DeMichael. Maybe I can keep my analyst hat on and not be as angry or upset. We'll see how I do on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Thank you, dear listener, dear viewer, for checking us out. However you are checking us out, whether it's on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, like, comment, rate, review, subscribe to Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host for this episode, Joe Mullinax, joined by my wonderful co-host, DeMichael Cole of the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. DeMichael, how are you, sir?
I'm great. You know, we got a lot to talk about today. I mean, I was wondering how we're going to fit all this into 30 minutes. And I feel like I'm going to play two hats today. But Joe, you know what? You show your anger a little bit more than me. I kind of
are the cool hand Luke of our tandem.
Yeah, but it's a lot going on that I'm kind of, you know, I'm kind of a little iffy about too. But
Ooh.
you know, I let you, you know, you kind of express it for both of us sometimes. So
well, I'm gonna let you kind of guide that, because you're allowed to be angry too, DeMichael. You're right. You know what? I'm mad that I get so mad so often. You have an opportunity today to kind of lead that anger. That'll probably come later on in the show, I would imagine, because this first part, it's hard to be mad at somebody who is recovering from whatever is ailing Marcus Smart. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 to get 200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. DeMichael, let's lead off going into tonight's game. Obviously, the Grizzlies play the Atlanta Hawks tonight. This game is on NBA TV, if I'm not mistaken. We'll preview the game. And again, we don't talk so much about the opponent as we do the Grizzlies here in the preseason. Yeah. We'll talk more about that later on in the show. But somebody that we know that will not be playing in the game, someone that's gotten an update recently in terms of his health, is Marcus Smart. Apparently better than Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart, which is absurd. And we'll talk more about that here in a little bit as well. ESPN has some explaining to do. But I do think that it's important to lead off this episode because it's not a silly player ranking that's clearly trying to generate content, conversation. It's not a preseason game preview, which they're important, but the most important thing is what's going to happen on October 25th on opening night.
Right.
Having that Grizzlies starting lineup out there and a healthy roster to start the season as healthy as you could possibly have it, especially considering the Ja Morant suspension. What are you hearing? What is the latest on Marcus Smart not playing in this one? Is he going to see any preseason action at this point?
Yeah, it's a legit question. I mean, you look at where we are in the preseason now. This will be the Grizzlies' third preseason game, and Marcus Smart will have missed all three. He missed the open practice on last Saturday. Then he missed the first game on Sunday, Tuesday. Now he's missing Thursday. And what I've gathered is we know that the Grizzlies like to operate on the side of caution. Like that is kind of been their MO for a while now.
Very much so.
And you double that caution when you factor in it's the preseason. And, again, when I was talking to people out in Boston, when they were talking about Marcus Smart and his injury history and things like that, a lot of people will tell you out there that he gets banged up quite often. It's not unfamiliar to see him deal with these type of injuries. This is abdominal soreness for some of you who probably may not know that he's dealing with. But he dives for loose balls. He hustles. He gets, he won the Hustle of the Year award. I think last year, the year before that, one of those years, he's a great defensive player because of that hustle. And the detriment, the negative side of that is sometimes maybe when he should pull up and just let the ball go out of bounds, he goes flying into the bench and, goes to get the ball. So you take the good with the bad with that Marcus Smart, but there is some injury, concern there. But when he's on the floor, he's going to give you 100. I mean, so I think maybe it's the Grizzlies kind of holding him back from himself in a way too. But here's where we are, Joe. This is why it's concerning. It's concerning because you got 2 preseason games after this left. You got Miami, and then you got a nice little gap there before you play the Milwaukee Bucks. Usually that last preseason game is sort of like your dress rehearsal, right? I mean, not your dress rehearsal. The second to last preseason game is usually your dress rehearsal. The last preseason game, you throw out, Jacob Gilyard, David Roddy, Jake LaRavia, Kenneth Lofton Jr., Michael Mulder. All those guys are going to get extensive run, potentially. But that game is coming up on Sunday, and talking to Taylor Jenkins, he's definitely, again, as I said on yesterday, he's definitely not playing today. Marcus Smart it is. But they're talking about potentially a ramp-up period with him and kind of bringing him along, over the course of the week. As Taylor Jenkins said, yeah, they still have some time to go, which in terms of the regular season, yes, they do. But if the goal is to get him back for the preseason, you're probably looking at Marcus Smart playing possibly Sunday, but it's leaning towards the last preseason game. And if that's the case, do you play the other starters with him? I know some people are going to want to shut Jaren down after this game, or Desmond Bane down after the 4th preseason game. They're not going to want to see those guys in a meaningless preseason game 5 days away from the regular season opener. So you got a weird situation here, particularly because of Marcus Smart's role on the team.
Yeah, the schedule is strange to close out the preseason, and I've followed the team for a while. Obviously, I know you followed them as well, DeMichael. They play tonight, as you alluded to. Then they have a couple of days off, play on Sunday, and then they don't play again until Friday. Now, usually I agree with you that you treat that second to last preseason game as the dress rehearsal. You get Jaren 30 minutes. You get Desmond Bane 30 minutes. They play into the second half, maybe even play a little bit in the 4th quarter. But because of that structure, do you think maybe they sit out the coming Sunday and almost give them like a full week of practice and rest, and maybe that Friday is treated like the dress rehearsal? I'm just not sure. It's such a unique schedule, as there's less games for preseason. They still have that ramp up time like you talked about. As a coach, I'm intrigued to see, obviously beyond Thursday, how he handles it's 2 games in basically a 10 or 11 day period. It's almost like a football schedule for a basketball team.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just know the blowback that a coach would get if you're talking about 5 days for the regular season. You go out there and play your guys 25, 30 minutes. If it's up to me, again, when I say some of these things, I try to get into the mind of Taylor Jenkins. In my mind, I think you play, your start because of the 5 day gap that you mentioned, from playing Sunday to I think it's Friday when you play the Bucks in Milwaukee in the last preseason game. So that's a decent gap to, we talk about ramping up guys like Steven Adams, Derrick Rose resting here and there, and all these guys. It's the perfect opportunity for those guys to get rest during the week, and you continue to build up for the regular season. So it makes sense to me. I wonder if Taylor Jenkins will go in that direction. If he does, then that's good, because now you have more opportunity, more time to get Marcus Smart at least one preseason game. I think a preseason game, you want to see one. And what Taylor Jenkins said after practice on yesterday basically was, sure, they want to get Marcus Smart out there, but of course, going back to the caution where he said they're not going to get him out there if it comes to the detriment of his health.
And it's almost impossible for them to get into a rhythm anyway, right? Like if he can't play Thursday, then it probably doesn't make sense for him to play Sunday because he plays one game and then he's off for 5 days. Maybe they just do shoot for that Friday game and say, this is going to be our chance to go all in a little bit and see how we do. I'm intrigued. Like I said, I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do with Marcus Smart. I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze in terms of rushing him along because of that lack of rhythm. That's not going to happen now that he's not going to play, today into Sunday. I'm curious. It's just a strange alignment. a lot of downtime, a lot of off time, and then they're jumping right into the schedule, obviously. That's going to be a shock to the system a little bit. So how you handle that as a coach is going to be really interesting to see. Something else, DeMichael, that's going to be really interesting to see is how you and I react to ESPN's NBA rank. I think number 50 through 11 came out recently in their top 100 or so. And there's all sorts of problems with it. The largest problem has to do with somebody who was ranked the day before. I think he's number 61. And Desmond Bane being the 61st best player in the National Basketball Association is quite the take to have in this year of 2023. We're going to talk about that and far more next here on Locked On Grizzlies. But first, this episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's right, $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about giving FanDuel a shot, you most certainly should give it a try. There's no better time to get in on the action. The app is extremely easy to use, fun with a lot of different options for betting, including various spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn right now and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. We are talking the ridiculousness that is ESPN NBA rank next here on Locked On Grizzlies. Stick around. You're not going to want to miss it. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am Joe Mullinax of Bluff City Media. I have a piece that went live in the last day or so about Zaire Williams. You can check out over at Bluff City Media. Joined by my co-host, who has tons of pieces going live all the time over at the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for that publication. His name is DeMichael Cole. Between DeMichael and myself, you have come to the right place for Memphis Grizzlies content each and every day as proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network here on Locked On Grizzlies. DeMichael, let's put aside, actual logic when it comes to discussing basketball for a moment. And let's bring up ESPN. Because ESPN has this thing called NBA rank. And I do want to read specifically from the NBA rank item here, because it is important to stress what they're actually ranking, right? This was part of my conversation that I was having earlier with a couple of folks on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it. But the purpose of the conversation was me initially being mad about the ranking of Ja Morant. All right. And where Ja Morant was ranked, while understanding that they take into account, and this is again from NBA rank, not just quality of play, but also quantity, right? The amount that they're going to participate, the amount of games they're scheduled to play in. Ja Morant naturally behind the 8 ball in that regard, because he's not going to play a ton this coming season, at least compared to other players, because of the 25-game suspension. However, he fell all the way down to number 35. There are players like Paolo Banchero and Brandon Ingram that were rated in front of Ja Morant. I think that's asinine. I don't think that's actually going to happen. But predictably, for those that follow my work and my
Joe, say that again, just in case some people may not have heard what you said. What number is Ja Morant ranked?
Number 35 in the entire National Basketball Association on NBA rank. Now again, they're
he was ranked
how much he's going to play and how active they think he's going to be. He was ranked literally number 9 last season, dropped 26 spots. So this ranking is designed for they're getting out of it, just by you and I talking about it, exactly what they want, right? I fell into the trap. I'll take responsibility for it. Although it sounds like you're mad about it too. So that's good. You're probably more mad about the Ja Morant thing, and I'll let you yell about that here in a second. I am infuriated at the fact that they rated Desmond Bane number 61 in the National Basketball Association. That means they think there are 60 people that are going to have better 2023, 2024s.
That's a lot of people.
Bane, including newly minted member of the Memphis Grizzlies, Marcus Smart, who is at number 59. So there's over 150 people that are participating, and there's all sorts of different opinions. Tell me you don't watch the Memphis Grizzlies without telling me you don't watch the Memphis Grizzlies. Have a overarching ranking where Desmond Bane, who should not be outside of the top 40 players in the NBA.
Let me say some of these names.
It's ridiculous.
Let's
say them out loud.
This is some of the names that are ranked above him, and one stands out to me, but I'll get to that last.
Okay.
I'll say that one for last.
By all means, be mad. I want to hear you mad.
Jeremy Grant is above him.
Ridiculous.
Draymond Green in the year of our Lord 2023.
In the year of our Lord 2023. Better than Desmond Bane.
Josh Giddey.
Wow.
Aaron Gordon is riding that championship high, apparently.
Good for you, Aaron Gordon.
The recently traded DeAndre Ayton, who is not good enough to be the starting center of the Phoenix Suns because he doesn't fit a star-studded team.
It makes too much money.
Never's played a game, Victor Wembanyama.
Say that one again.
Never's played a game, Victor Wembanyama.
Never played a game in the National Basketball Association.
I got two more. I can't help myself. Well, I got three because CJ McCollum's ahead of him in the year of our Lord 2023. And
maybe in 2013 when Desmond Bane was 13 years old or something.
But here are the two that stand out to me. And these are good players. Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton now. The same guy, if we're talking injury, who,
right. We can really count on him being
who was pretty much never healthy last season and still hasn't played a preseason game with the Bucks. But the last one
now the number 3 guy on his own team.
The last one that stands out to me is Tyrese Maxey, only because he's a good player, right? He's a solid player. But here's the thing. Tyrese Maxey, what number did you say Desmond Bane is ranked, Joe? What number?
He's at 61. 61.
Now, haven't we, over the summer, didn't we say Tyrese Maxey and Desmond Bane? I think we used Tyrese Maxey as, if he gets a max contract, Desmond Bane could use that and say, vice versa. Like, these guys are pretty much
comparable.
Yeah. Same draft class. Tyrese Maxey is 19 spots. He's 42nd. Desmond Bane is 61st. The league basically thinks there's a gap between these guys. Well, not the league. ESPN
thinks there's a gap.
Has a gap between these guys, and it's a considerable one.
I don't fully understand it, Michael, and I'm going to be honest. Looking at this, again, there's a lot wrong with the list, right? Like Zion's ranked number 57, Zion Williamson. Obviously, that's ridiculous. And they do take availability aspect. But again, you here's what they say about Desmond Bane. Okay. And this is why he could exceed his ranking. This is from Tim McMahon at ESPN, who apparently went to media day, asked one question about Ja Morant, and then maybe left almost immediately after. You don't have to speak to that, DeMichael. Whether or not that's true, maybe you want to debunk that rumor. I know you work with Tim McMahon. I'm not going to put you out there. I don't work with Tim McMahon. So this is from Tim McMahon. This is Joe Molinek saying this after I read this, not to Michael Cole. I want to stress that. I don't want to put my partner out there in an awkward spot. This is me, not to Michael. Okay, so this is what Tim McMahon wrote. Elite shooters whose games are as well-rounded as Bane's are hard to find. He joined Steph Curry and Kevin Durant as the only players in the league to average at least 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists while shooting better than 40% from three-point range. It's a good bet that Bane, 25 years old, will keep getting better. His scoring, rebound, and assist averages have increased significantly each season. Well, let me ask you this, Tim McMahon, riddle me this. Where did you rank Desmond Bane? Because the way you just read that, it sounds like we should see him not as good as Kevin Durant, not as good as Steph Curry. No one's making that argument, but he's a hell of a lot better than number 61. And something tells me you didn't have him ranked that high because you are doing that write-up, and you could have had an opportunity with your connection to the Mavericks to see them more consistently. And yet, here we are, Desmond Bane ranked behind Marcus Smart. Even reading that paragraph and then saying he's the number 61 player in the NBA makes me want to pull what little hair I have left out.
And I think he took the angle of why
he could get
higher because
although he's already really freaking good.
I think Tim McMahon has Desmond Bane higher than that. I would like to think so. I think it's a poll and it's a lot of ESPN of people involved in it. And, you mentioned Tim McMahon covering the Mavs, but he's basically ESPN's
the Southwest Division guy.
He's around a decent amount, and he thinks Desmond Bane is a really good player. So I'm not going to put that one on him. But
I trust
the Ja one is a little bit different.
Yeah, you go ahead and go Ja one for a couple.
The
floor is yours.
I had a chance to text him a little bit, and he's not shying away from the Ja ranking on this list, to say the least. And the 25 game suspension stuff, it makes sense that he fell on the list. I completely get that part.
Yeah.
But Joe Mullinax,
consider the criteria.
Joe Mullinax, Ja can play 12 games next year, and I still wouldn't put Paolo Banchero ahead of Ja Morant. There's levels. Like let me just list some of the names. These are some of the guys that are ranked ahead of Ja Morant here. Kyrie Irving, I can give you that one. And if we want to talk about availability,
totally stable guy. He's totally stable.
Yeah. And I'll be nice and give you that one. But Mikal Bridges, I mean, we for half a season we just seen him get a feature role, the role that we've seen Ja play pretty much his entire
I'd
career.
rather have him than Ja Morant, obviously. Yeah, totally.
Jalen Brunson, who anyways.
I tell you what, that guy, that New York market has some sizzle to it, no doubt.
Jaren Jackson Jr. is ranked ahead of Ja, so I mean,
that's an interesting topic for a future episode.
But you got Trae Young, you got Lauri Markkanen, like these breakout guys.
Lauri Markkanen,
Brandon Ingram, the guy who couldn't even find a role on Team USA. Drew Holiday, I love Drew Holiday's game. I won't argue too much there, even though offensively it's not close. And then you got names like De'Aaron Fox to start to come in. DeMontis
is Drew Holiday you could make an argument Drew Holiday is the fourth best player on his own team.
You can make that argument.
And Kristaps Porzingis is healthy.
You can make that argument. You can,
depending on how turned up you want to get on this Locked On Grizzlies. You could make an argument he's the fifth best player on his own team.
It's Desmond Bane and Ja Morant, I guess, are underrated players on a national level. That's what I got from this. And I mean, I didn't think that was, especially with Ja, I didn't think that was possible. But the 25 game suspension. That's why I'm with you in terms of, you thought I had more of a problem with Ja's ranking, but actually I'm with you. I have more of a problem with Dez's ranking because Dez is everything you want in a shooting guard. He's efficient. He's a 3-level guy. He improved going to the rim this past season. He improved as a defender. And so far in preseason, I don't know if anyone saw this, but Desmond Bane has been really good defensively so far in the preseason. He is what you want in a shooting guard. He is the makeup of a shooting guard in today's game. Only thing you can nitpick at is he's not an elite isolation scorer, at this point of his career, and probably won't ever be that guy. But that does not exclude him from the top 50 in the NBA, in my opinion.
The ESPN, you're confusing me. I think I saw Kevin Pelton ranking his system that he does that had the Grizzlies as the number 1 seed potentially in the Western Conference. And then you go and the number 1 seed potentially in the Western Conference, who's been the number 2 seed over the last 2 seasons in the regular season, a top 5 team in the NBA over the last 2 total years, apparently does not have a player inside the top 35 or 30 in the entire NBA. Taylor Jenkins should be head coach of the millennium. He should be the greatest coach in the history of basketball if the Grizzlies are this successful and they just don't have the talent that other teams have. I'm being facetious. The Grizzlies have talent, and it's just not appreciated the way it should be. But let's get back to focusing on that talent on the floor here, partner. We're going to finish up this episode of Locked On Grizzlies, talking Grizzlies-Hawks. As we've mentioned before, it's a preseason game. We're not going to get too deep in the Atlanta weeds. What do we want to see from Memphis coming up on kind of national television tonight? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Grizzlies. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am Joe Mullinax, one of your hosts of Bluff City Media, also of SB Nation from time to time, talking with my wonderful co-host, Michael Cole, the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee, Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for that publication. And you are listening to Locked On Grizzlies. I'm not as mad anymore after the break. I took a little bit of a breath.
You cooled off a little bit.
I rubbed my earlobes a little bit, did a little woosah action, and I'm good. I'm calm, and I think I'm ready to talk about Grizzlies Hawks. Now, again, not going to focus as much on the Hawks. No disrespect to the Hawks. I love the Locked On Hawks episode or show. I think they do a really good job over there. And I think
it's the preseason, man.
It's also important to point out it's preseason. I don't think Atlanta really cares about the Hawks yet because the Braves are still in the playoffs. I know they lost to the Phillies. I'm not going to go too far down that road.
We're not going down that rabbit hole
This
yet.
isn't
We're
coping. Right. We're coping still. And I'm a Nationals fan, so I don't have a horse in the race. I wish both teams could lose, to be honest with you. But anyway, I think my point is I think the focus is not on the Hawks just yet, if it ever gets there. So we're not going to focus on the Hawks either. We're going to focus on Memphis. I know you talked a lot about Zaire Williams yesterday. I wrote about Zaire. He's a continued kind of focus of ours as the preseason goes on. What else are you looking for from the Grizzlies as they enter into this big game against Atlanta, as big as a preseason game can get, trying to figure out who that fifth starter is, more rotation stuff, that sort of thing?
Pretty much the same thing for me. I mean, it's the wings. I think we know what you're going to get from the guards at this point. I think you're going to have Desmond Bane, you're going to have Luke Kennard, you're going to have Marcus Smart, you're going to have Derrick Rose as your four main guys, and we'll see a potential fifth guy sprinkled in every now and then. But those are your four main guys who soak up most of those minutes. We know that Jaren and Santi will get most of the minutes at the 4. We know that X and Steven Adams will get most of the minutes at the 5. We know all of this. The only thing we don't know is who's going to start at the 3, who's going to get the backup minutes at the 3, and we still don't know that. Talking to Taylor Jenkins, I asked him, I said, hey, do we know if other guys are going to get an opportunity to start yet? We've seen, these two guys, Luke Kennard, get a start. We've seen Zaire Williams get a start. What about David Roddy? What about Jake LaRavia? Jake LaRavia has scored, 15 and 16 in 2 games? Roddy hasn't scored at that level, but he's been efficient. I think he shot 4 of 6 in one game, 4 of 8 in another game. So he's playing efficient basketball so far, and he's playing solid defense. So will they get opportunities? I've seen some people said to me that Roddy has actually been the most impressive of the small forwards. When you rank the 3 guys, Roddy, LaRavia, and Zaire. So I want to see if one of those guys, is Roddy going to get a chance? Is LaRavia going to get a chance? And even if they don't get their starting chance, you still got 2 more preseason games after this. So can you kind of create a performance for yourself that'll make Taylor Jenkins give you a chance going forward? It's all about the wings for me, Joe.
Minutes and how they're distributed. I agree with you on the wings, and it's kind of fitting against Atlanta, right? Whether it's the wing guru or Magic City.
Yeah, it is the wing battle.
It's the wing battle. Yeah. I think that's fitting. I want to see who's playing with who, right? I want to see how they have Zaire, how they use him. We've seen some facilitation things with him in the pick and roll that I know you've pointed out and others have pointed out as well. Getting him some chances as a secondary facilitator, that's really good to see. I'd love to see how they continue to use Xavier Tillman, because I want to put this out there. I got into a bit of a brouhaha on X over this. I like Xavier Tillman. I think he is decidedly better than Kenneth Lofton Jr. at this stage. The point that I like to make when discussing Tillman versus Lofton Jr., as I've talked about on the show before, and I'll probably write about it at some point in the next few days, the point is Lofton's offensive potential, the fact that he is a walking bucket. It's not as much about fan perception and liking him. Trust me, if there is one person who follows the Memphis Grizzlies and who is Grizzlies media, if you want to call me Grizzlies media, if there's one dude who doesn't care what people think, it's me. Right? 100%. I have proven that time and again, probably to my own detriment on numerous occasions. All right. So my point with that is, as Lofton Jr. improves, what has been my marching orders the entire offseason heading into the season to Michael, the half-court offense has to improve. You have to be able to score. If X does not improve his offensive capabilities and Lofton Jr. keeps growing as a defender, when does that gap close? Maybe it never does, but how they try to cover up X's offensive limitations, because once this team is healthy, and I tweeted about this or posted about this, whatever the hell it's called now, if he's out there with Kennard and LaRavia or Williams or Roddy and Aldama, him not scoring doesn't matter as much, right? That's not something. Derrick Rose at the point, like you've got four dudes you'd rather shoot the ball than X on the court, and X can just be that defensive focused guy he's really good at it. So how those guys continue to kind of get used together, helping each other, getting comfortable around one another, especially with Rose and Smart is still out. a lot of these guys know each other really well, but really kind of how they mix and mingle and try to mask deficiencies and accentuate the things that one another does well. That's what I'm really kind of keeping an eye on.
I like the way you put that, and just thinking about this bench unit. We're going to talk more about it as we kind of get an idea of who will be where and things like that. But I think the Grizzlies have the potential to have a really good bench this season.
Right.
Once we see those pieces fall in place, it'll make more sense. I think those parents we talk about, Derrick Rose being on the floor with a guy like Luke Kennard, and then you got to have a really good wing defender on the floor with those guys. So whether
it has to be Zaire,
whether it's Zaire coming off the bench or it's John Conchard or Jake LaRavia improving as a defender to the point where the Grizzlies trust him in that situation, whatever the case may be. But I feel like the Grizzlies can throw out like 3 or 4 guys on the second unit who could potentially average double figures. I think Luke Kennard probably the only one that actually does, but Derrick Rose can hover around there if given that amount, the amount of minutes to do that. Or a guy like Jake LaRavia, we've seen 16 and 15 points. Like, you give him the minutes, he's going to shoot it. And now that he's shooting it, the points are going to come in bunches for him as well. Santi Aldama, we saw it last season. He can score the basketball. He'll shoot it. So they have some offensive talent on that second unit. And I think once we get a better picture, this game against the Hawks will kind of help give us a clear picture of that too. But we'll be able to kind of really dive into what this bench could potentially look like.
And this game will be another step towards that, especially for those younger players. It may not be as important for Steven Adams. To be honest with you, it's not even as important moving forward for a Desmond Bane or Jaren Jackson Jr. I've seen enough. Those
or even Derrick Rose, like all those older guys.
Those I've seen enough, especially from those guys. I'm ready to see more from those younger players and the cream rising to the top. I'm going to keep an eye on that myself. And that's something that I'm sure I'll talk about on our next episode of Locked On Grizzlies. DeMichael will be there in it is at home, right? I don't want to miss.
No, this is in Atlanta.
That's what I thought. Yeah, see, it is Atlantic City. See, I caught myself. So you might be available. We'll see. Well, maybe you'll last minute, maybe you want to go get some wings, right? But anyway, whether it's me, whether it's us, however the case might go, obviously we'll be breaking down Memphis at Atlanta. See, that's why you ask questions to Michael. Want to make sure I didn't get that wrong. Wanted to take a look at that game from all angles, break down rotations, how the team is being used. Hopefully there's no injuries to discuss. I do think that we'll save a conversation about the GM survey, which came out this week. That might be a good thing to talk about on Sunday, partner. And we'll save that for that time so you and I can dive deep, because there's a lot of good Grizzlies nuggets in that one. Some interesting points to discuss. That might be a good Sunday focus. And we have a game coming up. We have a lot of stuff we can talk about here on Locked On Grizzlies. So make sure you are staying locked in with us, however you are taking in the show. Make sure you're rating, commenting, reviewing, liking, subscribing, all those fun things wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. For the wonderful DeMichael Cole of The Commercial Appeal, I am Joe Mullinax of Bluff City Media. Stay locked in. Go Grizzlies against the Hawks. We'll catch you next time here on Locked On Grizzlies.